Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a breaking news for you that Niger Republic is now the third country on the planet Earth to acquire the Turkish Aksungur drone. Ladies and gentlemen, the name is so fantastic, but it's not just about the name. You have to see this Empire Real Estate new innovation from Turkey. Ladies and gentlemen, according to credible sources, they said this Aksungur drone, has the capability of carrying some guided munitions that has the capability of covering the entire Nigerian territory. And you have to pay attention to the size of those payload on the ground. Man, imagine this guided munition. And you know, when you look at the conformation, the design of the munition, it looks something like a Taurus or something, though even though it's not. But when you see the design of the payload on the ground there, you can actually understand that it's going to drop some very, very precise, you know, strike on the enemy. Now imagine what type of catastrophic impact will be caused when this payload actually hit its target. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an advanced wartime capability by the Nigerian Armed Forces. You know, if you can you know, check back a little bit, you can remember that last time we talked about a sort of collaboration, a sort of security agreement between Turkey and Niger, that the Turkish nation will be sending some military battle-hardened specialists to Niger to train the Nigerian troops on some type of military capabilities. You know, it's not just sending equipment alone. The training is part and the maintenance agreement is part of it. So I believe that, you know, this equipment landing in Niamey yesterday is an evidence that collaborates with the information we earlier brought that there is an agreement between Turkey and Niger Republic. And I think this is a win-win situation for both countries. Now, and this also on the side addressed the concern of the president of Algeria, President Abdul Majid Tebboune, that I said, why are they arming so much? They don't have bread, they don't have this. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that, you know, capabilities spells capability. When you discover a certain type of capability from an aggressor, there is a paramount need for you to develop a counter capability to be able to address the threats of that capability. And there is only one bride out here: sovereignty. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we live in an era where for you to call yourself a sovereign country, you need to have some high level of deterrence capability. You know, your combat capability when it comes to the troop level. How battle hardened are your troops? You have to talk about the intelligence, technology in terms of drone acquisitions and all of that. Modern warfare has changed, but the AES state has a need to address a pressing concern of terror that has faced it in this recent time that he had demanded for its sovereignty. Ladies and gentlemen, because of this drone, let me tell you why I feel like this drone is very, very important. We actually saw something yesterday when some troops were being redeployed to Djibo. Now, they were en route to Djibo because they wanted to change. You know, some troops on the front line in Djibo needs to go back to their family, while some new troops need to go to the front line to go and replace the containment team that have been on the front line for several weeks. Now, we discovered that they were targeted by some group of JNIM. How were they targeted? It was not a close quarter battle. It was not, you know, a close combat situation. This was a planned attack, you know. And if you look at the equipment that they used in detonating the explosive, where they detonated it, and there is a lot of speculation if it was an explosive, if it was a mine, if it was an improvised explosive device, or if it was a drone that has the capability of dropping a large payload on a certain group of Burkinabes. You can see the marked region there. You know, that was where the detonation happened. We will drop the video on the Telegram channel. You can actually you know, go there and watch what really happened. I think, you know, the damage was minimal at the end of the day, but you have to really understand the level of capabilities that the funders of these groups are actually harming them with. So if the Nigerians are actually getting the Aksungur drone, you actually know that, look, they are within the justification of getting this type of military equipment. And again, as if that is not enough, Captain Ibrahim Traore dropped a maximum bombshell, in my own opinion, about the frontline realities, about the military adventure, and, you know, the need to address some issues of pressing concern. Now, this is a very, very exclusive interview with some group of Burkinabe journalists. And according to the information we have, you know, it's a 1 hour 40 minutes video. You can actually go view it on the Burkinabe official website, the RTB. You can watch it on YouTube, on Facebook. You can watch it on a lot of platforms, but it's in French. So I tried to convert it to English, but the AI tool I've been using recently have not really been giving me the best result when it comes to the lip synchronization.
Il y a de la ressource. Il suffisait juste de chercher. Et voilà, nous sommes là-dessus. Vous serez surpris sûrement.
Alors, Monsieur le Président, cette guerre, est-ce que nous...
Bonsoir.
Merci de nous faire l'honneur de nous recevoir ici au palais de Koulouba à Ouagadougou donc pour cette grande interview.
Good evening.
Thank you for honoring us by receiving us here at the Koulouba Palace in Ouagadougou for this important interview.
Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening.
Some of your critics regularly bring up a phrase, and this phrase dates back to the early moments of your taking power when you said that if everything is implemented, 3 months would be enough to move towards the forefront of the war. And these detractors say today that 3 years later, the war is not completely over. Mr. President, this evening, what do you say to them?
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming to this interview. It is true, it's what we would have wished, but things didn't go as we thought. And I said, if everything is implemented, then there are several perspectives to implement to achieve this goal in this time frame. But not everything was implemented as we wanted. First, adversity. So as soon as we came to power, we hoped we would be allowed to work very quickly and make progress. Unfortunately, some people approached us and wanted us to go their way because their goal was not for the war to end anytime soon. I am talking about certain foreign forces that were present on our soil. We had heated debates with diplomats from elsewhere on the issue, but no one wanted us to move towards ending this war. We understood it through the messages. If people came to us saying we must accept that they support the terrorists and support us as well, it means what it means. It's a sustained war. So we quickly understood. We got rid of all the forces that were present here, whether they were French forces, American forces, and we understood that the fight would be tough. The second thing was also we believed that we had at least a minimum of weapons and ammunition in stock. Today, I can tell you what I found, for example, in stock. In total, in Burkina Faso, there were less than 100,000 Kalashnikov cartridges. And as for weapons, we barely had 100. How could Tanambi wage war? We had to re-equip and resupply the army with personnel, weapons and everything. This made the 3-month objective possible if these prerequisites were met, but there was nothing. We were not prepared for war, neither in terms of equipment nor personnel.
Precisely, Mr. President, you just mentioned it. When you took power, to caricature, there were more men than ammunition in the Burkinabe army. Today, where do we stand with the armament program of that army? And then, what are the signs that it is gradually gaining strength?
Really well. I said it. I cannot depict the entire situation that existed. It was catastrophic. And as I said, you can investigate. There might even be soldiers in this room who were on the front without weapons that existed in our army. So these are situations we thought it was just, I won't say bad faith, but an incomprehensible situation. For us, there were weapons and they refused to equip. But when we faced reality very quickly, we decided to first seek to arm the personnel who were there. And there, it was a real struggle because many powers refused to sell us weapons. And so we turned to those who wanted to sell us weapons. Very quickly, we equipped ourselves. We recruited the VDP. We were able to pay for everything we wanted. The process, we made an equipment plan for our build-up. And as you can see, for the past 2 years, the equipment has started to come in. It's still not over, and it keeps coming. Maybe in a few days, you will see new equipment being presented, which are mainly support equipment. Because first the infantry needed to be equipped so that each man could have a weapon issued. That was a big challenge. Here we are. We continue to recruit, as you can see, each year. It's between 10,000 and 15,000 men that we recruit. That is a considerable effort. Because no matter what he said, adversity is there. And the number of terrorists is increasing because the imperialists are recruiting many mercenaries who come to Burkina Faso to fight. So we must adapt to the situation. Now we have our third phase, which is no longer to buy, but to manufacture ourselves. And we are also involved in that. So that's the ramp up. We must equip ourselves well, but also create a defense industry.
That is very important. In a few months, a few years, we will have our military using weapons made in Burkina.
Of course, we have the intellectual capacity, there are resources.
So I'm going to, for the sake of the people, because I'm serving you all, so I'm going to have to go to the bank to make sure I make requests for my billing address. If I'm able to make request, if I'm able to get through with that, I will try and subscribe to some of the best AI voice translation tools out there, so that I can be able to give you this Empire Real Estate interview, because a lot was discussed in this interview, which I feel like you all deserve. Look, it's not, there's no negotiation here. You all deserve to know and hear every single bit of word the Captain Ibrahim Traore actually said, because it was a very, very intriguing interview. Now, let's move forward. Now, listen to what Captain Ibrahim Traore said, talking about when the French forces left, when the American forces left, and the realities that started to unfold after they've left. The diplomats that actually came to negotiate with them because of their interest for the terrorism to continue. The whole thing is just one kettle of corn conspire. Ladies and gentlemen, give me your opinion on what you think about the comment of Captain Ibrahim Traore. But I promise you, by the end of today, if I am successful with my mission, going to the bank to try to get the tool I need, I will drop the entire interview, 1 hour 40 minutes for you guys. And again, in the southeast of Kidal, the Malian armed forces launched a special military operation in the southeastern part of Kidal, where they were able to respond to a quick intelligence information that got to the Malian armed forces, and there was a collaboration between the Green Berets and the Air Force, where they actually sent in some group of battle-hardened forces into the southeast of Kidal, and they were able to neutralize dozens of armed elements. Now, this was a serious decapitation strike, because the armed elements had not even disembarked from their, vehicle and tried to orchestrate some type of, they did not even use any type of capabilities. It was airstrike all the way. The infantry moved in and they did a total clear out of the elements. A lot of equipments were recovered. You have to know that the battle situation in these countries are changing. The troops are getting more ardent. I think this is what happens after 3-4 years of being under constant threats from the enemies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very good time where a lot of transition is taking place in the capabilities of the AES forces. And lest I forget, I think they have one of the best intelligence in Africa right now. And if you talk about the military capabilities, I think right now the warfare is changing. You can see some weeks ago there was a sort of statement about energy sabotage. Y'all hear anything about energy sabotage again? It was the response from the military. So the military have been so intrepid about their response, about the timing of response, which is very, very important. And the citizens have been able to go back to their normal, livelihood and all of that. So let's go to the last information we have for today. There is a group called Awatan in Chad. This is important, right? It doesn't relate to the AES, but we need to really talk about this. Now, this group is called Jamatu al-Watan. Now, this is one of the groups that were kind of harmed sometimes back when the situation was desperate. They needed to confront some threats. Now, this group actually, they lost their part and they started escalating issues. They started, performing a lot of atrocious activities. So what happened was that, the Chadian armed forces actually put a lot of pressure on them. Everything got really kinetic, and the Chadian armed forces got the best of them. So what we do have yesterday is a crumbling terror organization that has now come to the table. They didn't just come to the table like what we have in Nigeria, where bandits come to the table armed with a lot of munition. We have a situation where they came to the negotiating table that they want peace. They don't want to go back to this whole type of kind of conspire. So what they did was that they brought their arms, everything. They brought it and they presented it to the Chadian armed forces, and mercy prevailed over judgment. But ladies and gentlemen, look at this equipment. Look at the type of guns. I'm not taking none of those. Ladies and gentlemen, look at those weapons that they submitted. Ladies and gentlemen, an ordinary person. Look, if you are still far from the realities that Africa is facing, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what else anybody can tell you. Look at this equipment. Do you know how much this equipment will be cost? Look at those SMGs, right? Look, it's not even the AK-47. Look at those other guns right there. But they've actually dropped it. Look at the number of landmines. Ladies and gentlemen, in this period of transition into liberation, into total sovereignty, I think the battle is going to continue. A luta continua, Victoria Asanta, homeland of death. You already know what it is. It's your boy 72 Andrade signing out. Enough said. But before I go, thank you and God bless you.